In the soil. I always believed the past could haunt you, but never like this. It started with a simple gardening project in the backyard of my newly purchased Victorian home. As I dug into the earth, my shovel struck something hard. Curiosity piqued. I unearthed an old, weathered diary. The name on the cover sent a chill down my spine. It was mine, James A. Mercer. The first entry was dated 100 years ago, yet the handwriting mirrored my own. Each page I turned detailed events eerily similar to my life, but a century apart. The entries spoke of love, loss, and a haunting that grew with each word I read. The diary's author, my namesake, described a presence that watched from the shadows, a whisper in the silence. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I read about the other James' encounter with a spectral woman in white, her eyes hollow, her intentions cryptic. He wrote of her visits, each more harrowing than the last, her whispers becoming screams in the night. I shuddered, feeling the weight of his dread as if it were my own. The last entry was the most disturbing. It was written yesterday. April 29th, 1924. I can hear him digging. He's coming for me, just as I came for him. The cycle must continue. The words echoed in my mind, a prophecy or a warning. The ground beneath me felt unstable, the past and present blurring. That night, I heard it for the first time, the sound of a shovel against the earth, rhythmic and persistent. I peered out the window, but the yard was empty. The digging continued, a taunting cadence that promised a truth buried in darkness. I tried to convince myself it was my imagination, the product of the diary's influence. But as sleep eluded me, the digging grew louder, closer. It was a summons, a call to uncover secrets that should have remained hidden. As dawn approached, the digging stopped. I ventured outside, the morning mist clinging to my skin. The ground was undisturbed, yet the diary lay open on the last entry, the ink fresh as if just penned. I can hear him digging. The diary consumed my thoughts. I traced the entries, searching for clues to unravel the mystery. The spectral woman haunted my dreams, her eyes like twin moons, pulling me into a vortex of memories that weren't mine. I returned to the backyard, the shovel heavy in my grip. The earth yielded reluctantly, as if guarding its secrets. The whispers grew louder, urging me deeper. I dug until my fingers bled, until the soil revealed its truth. The diary spoke of a pact, a desperate bargain made by the other James. He sought answers, just as I did. The woman promised knowledge, but at a cost. He agreed, sealing his fate. Now, the cycle demanded my participation. Each night, I heard her voice, a siren's call. Dig, she whispered. Unearth the past. I wondered if she was the ghost of my namesake or something older, a guardian of forgotten sins. Her presence was suffocating, her touch icy against my skin. The neighbors avoided me, their eyes filled with suspicion. They sensed the darkness that clung to my house, the air thick with anticipation. I wondered if they heard the digging too, if they glimpsed the shadows that danced at the edge of their vision. The diary revealed more. The woman was a collector of souls, trapped between realms. She fed on secrets, on the buried sins of those who dared to disturb her domain. The other James had become her pawn, a vessel for her hunger. I tried to resist. I locked the diary away, but its pull was relentless. The digging continued, louder now, as if the earth itself conspired against me. I wondered if the woman was real or a manifestation of guilt, a mirror reflecting my darkest desires. One moonless night, I followed the whispers to the heart of the garden. The ground trembled, and the woman materialized before me. Her eyes held centuries of longing, her lips curved in a cruel smile. You've come, she said. The pact awaits. I raised the shovel, my resolve faltering. What do you want? Her laughter echoed through the night. The truth, James A. Mercer. The truth buried deep within you. She pointed to the diary, its pages fluttering in the wind. Read the final entry. Embrace your legacy. I hesitated, torn between curiosity and fear. The diary lay open, the ink bleeding into the soil. I can hear him digging, I whispered, completing the sentence. The earth quaked, and the woman stepped closer, her touch searing. The woman's eyes bore into mine, her gaze unyielding. "You've read the words," she said, her voice a haunting melody. "Now choose." I glanced at the diary, its pages fluttering as if caught in a storm. The final entry held the key, the truth that lay buried beneath my skin. The other James had made a pact, and now it was my turn. "Why me?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "Why this cycle?" She tilted her head, her laughter echoing through the night. "Because you share his name, his blood. You are the bridge between worlds." Her fingers traced the scar on my wrist, the one I'd had since childhood, a mark I'd never understood. The digging intensified, the ground cracking open. The woman stepped back, her form flickering. "The choice is simple," she said. "Embrace your legacy, or remain ignorant. But know this, the digging will never cease." I thought of my life, the mundane routines, the unfulfilled dreams. The diary had revealed secrets, but what was the cost? The woman's eyes promised answers, but they also held madness. "Tell me," I said, my resolve hardening. "What do you want?" Her lips brushed my ear, her breath cold as the grave. "A soul for a soul," she whispered. "Your past for his future. The other James awaits release, trapped in the shadows. Set him free, and you'll find your purpose." I closed my eyes, torn between fear and curiosity. The digging echoed in my bones, a relentless rhythm. The woman's touch burned, branding me with purpose. "And if I refuse?" She stepped away, her form fading. "Then the digging will consume you. The earth will swallow your sanity, and you'll wander forever, lost between realms." I looked at the diary, its ink bleeding into the soil. The other James had made his choice, and now it was mine. The woman vanished, leaving me with a single command: dig. So here I stand, shovel in hand, the moon a witness to my descent. The ground trembles, and I hear him, the other James, calling from the depths. His voice is a plea, a curse, a promise. I dig, unearthing memories that aren't mine, secrets that bind us across time. The whispers grow louder, the shadows closing in. And as the earth crumbles, I wonder if this is salvation or damnation. The diary lies open, its pages fluttering. I can hear him digging, I murmur, completing the sentence. The ground swallows me whole, and the woman's laughter follows me into the abyss. Story 2. Whispers in the walls. I always believed our house breathed secrets, murmuring tales in the dead of night when the world slipped into slumber. But it was during the waking hours that I began to notice the change in Ethan. My husband, once a man of jovial spirit and laughter, had become a shell, his eyes hollow, his touch cold. He spent endless hours locked away in the basement, a place he forbade me to enter. As days turned to weeks, his obsession with the basement grew. I would wake to the sound of his frantic scribbling, a symphony of scratches that danced along the walls. The house seemed to groan in protest, or perhaps in encouragement, I couldn't tell which. It was on a night cloaked in the thick velvet of darkness that I found the courage to defy his one rule. With a trembling hand, I turned the key to the basement, the lock clicking like a warning. The stairs creaked under my weight, each step a thunderous proclamation of my betrayal. At the bottom, I found Ethan, his back to me, hunched over the walls. His fingers were bloodied, working tirelessly to carve symbols that twisted and turned like serpents. "Ethan?" My voice was a stranger in this tomb of madness. He didn't respond, didn't even flinch. I stepped closer, the symbols pulling me in. They weren't just carvings, they pulsed with a life of their own, glowing faintly in the dim light. The air was thick with the scent of iron and decay, and I fought the urge to retch. I reached out to touch his shoulder, and he spun around. His eyes, once a warm brown, now swirled with shadows. "Don't," he hissed, the words slicing through the air. "You don't understand. They speak to me, through the walls. They're coming." "What's coming, Ethan? What have you done?" I pleaded, my heart racing. But he only shook his head, a manic grin spreading across his face. "It's too late," he whispered. "They're here." And that's when I heard it, the whispers, a chorus of voices that slithered into my mind, promising secrets and screams. I stumbled back, the voices growing louder. The symbols on the walls seemed to move, to breathe. I had to escape, to get out before whatever was coming through those walls reached me. But as I turned to run, the door slammed shut, plunging me into darkness. The last thing I remember before the screams began was Ethan's voice, chillingly calm, saying, "Welcome to their world." The basement was no longer a mere room, it had become a portal to something beyond our understanding. The symbols, etched into the walls like a forbidden script, pulsed with an otherworldly energy. I traced their contours with trembling fingers, feeling the vibrations resonate through my bones. Each stroke of Ethan's desperate hand had opened a rift, and now we teetered on the precipice of revelation. The whispers grew louder, their syllables twisting into a language that clawed at my sanity. They spoke of forgotten gods, of ancient bargains struck in blood and shadow. I tried to decipher their meaning, but the words slipped through my grasp like smoke. Ethan stood beside me, his eyes glazed, pupils dilated. He was no longer my husband, he was a vessel, a conduit for forces that defied reason. "Why?" I demanded, my voice echoing off the walls. "Why would you do this?" His lips moved, but the voice that emerged was not his own. "To save us," he said, and I recoiled. They promised answers, salvation. But there's a price, always a price. I glanced at the symbols, their geometry shifting, rearranging. They were a map, a guide to realms unseen. I had to understand, had to unravel the veil that separated our world from whatever lay beyond. But as I studied them, I realized they were incomplete. Ethan had carved them in desperation, driven by a madness that now consumed him. The air thickened, and shadows danced along the edges of my vision. The whispers intensified, urging me forward. I stepped closer to the wall, my fingers brushing the symbols. They burned, searing my skin, and I gasped. The pain was a reminder, I was still tethered to reality. But for how long? "Ethan," I said, my voice barely audible. "What do they want?" He swayed, eyes rolling back. "A doorway," he murmured. "A bridge between worlds. They hunger for flesh, for vessels to inhabit. And they promised knowledge, secrets that could reshape existence." I thought of our daughter, asleep upstairs, innocent and unaware. If I didn't stop this madness, she would be drawn into their web. I had to find a way to close the rift, to sever the connection. But the symbols mocked me, their meaning elusive. As dawn approached, the whispers reached a fever pitch. They echoed in my mind, urging me to sacrifice, to offer myself willingly. I stumbled backward, my resolve crumbling. Ethan lunged at me, his eyes aflame. "Join me," he pleaded. "Together, we can transcend." I pushed him away, my heart pounding. "No," I said. "I won't let them take us." But the walls trembled, and the symbols glowed brighter. The veil thinned, and I glimpsed something beyond, a writhing mass of tendrils, hungry eyes, and promises unkept. The basement was no longer a room, it was a maw waiting to devour us whole. And as the first rays of sunlight pierced the darkness, I made my choice. I would close the rift, even if it meant sacrificing everything. But as I raised my hand to the wall, the whispers changed, their tone shifting from hunger to laughter. The basement had become my prison, its walls closing in like the jaws of some ancient beast. The whispers no longer sought to seduce, they demanded obedience. I had glimpsed their hunger, their insatiable need for flesh, and I knew that closing the rift would be my final act of defiance. Ethan had become a vessel, a conduit for their malevolence. His eyes were vacant, his movements mechanical. He no longer spoke, instead, he communicated through the symbols, tracing them with bloodied fingertips. I watched as the patterns shifted, rearranging themselves into a new configuration, a sigil of dread. I had tried to research the symbols, to find a way to banish them, but they defied all logic. They were older than time, etched into the very fabric of reality. And as the days blurred into weeks, I felt myself unraveling. Sleep eluded me, nightmares plagued my every waking moment. I saw glimpses of their world, the writhing tendrils, the eyes that hungered for my soul. The house itself had changed. Its walls pulsed with a rhythm that matched my heartbeat. Shadows danced along the corridors, whispering secrets I couldn't comprehend. I had become a part of their game, a pawn in a cosmic struggle. And still, I clung to hope, the hope that I could save our daughter, that I could break free from this nightmare. One night, as the moon hung low in the sky, I descended into the basement once more. Ethan stood at the center, his body contorted, the symbols now covering every inch of the walls. His gaze met mine, and I saw the abyss within, the hunger, the madness. "It's time," he said, his voice hollow. "They're coming." I stepped forward, my hand trembling. The sigil pulsed, its glow blinding. I pressed my palm against it, feeling the heat sear my skin. The whispers intensified, urging me to surrender, to embrace the void. But I fought back. I thought of our daughter, of her laughter, her innocence. She deserved a chance at life, free from this nightmare. "Ethan," I whispered, "I won't let them take her." He laughed, a sound devoid of joy. "You don't understand," he said. "They're not coming from beyond. They've always been here, waiting. The symbols, they're the key. They open the door, but they also bind us." I closed my eyes, blocking out the pulsing light. I thought of Ethan before this madness consumed him, of our love, our shared dreams. And then I did the unthinkable, I began to erase the symbols. With each stroke, the whispers screamed, the walls trembled. But I persisted. I carved new patterns, ones of my own design, fueled by desperation. And as the last symbol faded, the rift collapsed. The basement walls crumbled, revealing a void, a darkness that threatened to swallow me whole. I stumbled back, gasping for air. Ethan fell to the ground, his body convulsing. The whispers turned to wails, fading into nothingness. But the house remained. Its scars ran deep, and I knew that the abyss still lingered, waiting for another vessel. I climbed the stairs, my legs weak, my heart heavy. Our daughter slept soundly, unaware of the horrors we had faced. I vowed to protect her, to shield her from the truth. As I closed the basement door, I heard a final whisper, a promise or a warning, I couldn't tell. "They'll return," it said. "When the stars align, when the symbols resurface. Be ready." And so, I wait, watching the skies, listening for the faintest murmur. For the abyss never truly leaves, it merely bides its time, hungering for release. The end. Subscribe for more. Thank you.